Ladies and gentlemen, drivers, gig workers, and everyone in between, welcome to This Week in Rideshare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Hoffa. It is Friday, March 20th, and this week, Uber dumps $1 billion into robotaxis, DoorDash's new tasks, and payouts take a turn. Legal Rideshare breaks it down. And from Legal Rideshare, I'm joined by the co-founder and lead attorney, Bryant Greening. Brian, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Jared. Great to be back here. It's sunny, it's warm. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I heard Chicago's nice and warm. It's not too bad in PA, but I feel like I brought the Chicago weather to Pennsylvania. It's cold and kind of dreary. I'm not a fan.
That's sad because it's almost shorts weather here. I
Oh,
made I'm gonna go and find a patio or something to sit on.
amazing. We have some good topics today. The third one, especially, I can't wait to hear your input on. We're going to jump right into it. And of course, as always, we were talking about robotaxis to start. Uber is dumping major cash into Rivian, and this is from Bloomberg News. And they reported, quote, Uber Technology plans to invest as much as 1.25 billion in car maker Rivian to help launch a robotaxi fleet that will be available in the US, Canada, and Europe over the next 5 years. Uber or its fleet partners will buy 10,000 autonomous Rivian R2 robotaxis and make them available exclusively on the Uber app, which is going to be starting in San Fran and Miami in 2028. Now, as part of the partnership, Uber has committed to an initial 300 million investment in Rivian. They also said they have the option to negotiate the purchase of as many as 40,000 more Rivian robotaxis beginning in 2030. Bryant, this feels like they're really no longer poking around. It seems like they're jumping in the ring and saying, we want to take this.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. They're investing big time on autonomous driving. They're putting their money where their mouth is, and I think they really do understand that not only is this the future, it's really the present. Now that we've got Waymo and various other companies putting these cars on the road, Uber cannot really afford to be left behind. They don't have the technology themselves to put these cars into their fleet, so they're finding partners. And as we've talked about before, this is a way for them to maintain their market share of rideshare. It doesn't, it doesn't matter if they have the technology as long as they have their brand on the autonomous vehicles that are out there. So whether that's with partnerships with Rivian, whether that's partnerships with Waymo down the line, or whatever, whichever way they go, as long as you are booking the ride through the Uber app, Uber's taking some of that profit, and that's the way that they maintain dominance in the rideshare space. I'm not sure that everybody's going to be downloading Waymo in the same numbers that they downloaded Uber. Like everybody's already got Uber on their phone. It doesn't take any new action in order to request that ride. So as long as Uber's providing the type of ride that customers want, whether that's with a driver or autonomous or whatever it may be, they're keeping the customer, they're keeping the ride, they're keeping the market share. So that's what this is all about.
Yeah, and I was just curious. I just looked this up. Just to give perspective here, we talk about Waymo a lot and how they're expanding in let's say San Fran, right? So as of August of 2025, there's about 800 driverless cars in the Bay Area. So compare that to what Uber is saying in 2 years or so, they're going to have 10,000. So that is quite a difference between what we say, wow, Waymos are everywhere in San Francisco, and Uber saying, well, no, we're going to have, what is that, 10 times that and more? So yeah, I think they're finally saying we're going to jump in this too. And like you said, really pointed it out. You don't have to download a new app. It's the Uber app. You don't have to even know what vehicle it is. You can just choose, I'm sure, Uber AV or whatever they're going to call it. So
That's the thing. They want to be the Uber for everything,
right.
and they're going to be the Uber for autonomous vehicles.
Yep, and that's what we're seeing, and the fact that they, in the fine line here, that they're optioning up, that they're willing to get another 40,000 vehicles, means that they're betting big, and they're betting that they're underselling it right now. So you don't put options in that with deals unless you're assuming that this is the minimum threshold.
Hmm.
Usually, it's if there's some sort of concern, they can scale it back. They're saying no, we are happy to do four times that by 2030. So big news, a lot bigger than it seems, honestly, as far as the scale here.
Right.
Moving on to the next story, kind of tying into more AI AV stuff. Interesting. DoorDash's angle here. They are using human tasks to train AI, and this is from Bloomberg, and they reported, quote, DoorDash is paying delivery couriers in some markets to submit video clips and complete other digital tasks to help improve artificial intelligence and robotics models, following competitors that have found creative new uses for gig workers in the AI boom. The delivery company has launched a new app called Tasks for those efforts, listing paid opportunities for activities such as recording an unscripted conversation in Spanish or filming themselves completing various household chores, like loading a dishwasher, hand washing dishes, or folding clothes. Brian, I think the interesting thing about all of this is, a couple months ago when people started to panic that AI and autonomous vehicles and robots would be taking jobs, the CEOs assured everyone that no, there will be jobs for humans, and basically the jobs for humans are record these things so we can also get rid of you when we're done with them.
Right. This is
I mean,
the ultimate like training your replacement.
yeah,
Where
geez.
it's a really kind of sad story. I mean, it is the future. We have to acknowledge that deliveries are going to be made by robots sooner rather than later. We're seeing it in certain markets. I think I saw in New Jersey that they were making deliveries by drone in certain areas. But the fact that they're using their delivery drivers to train the AI, which will replace them sooner rather than later, you feel for these drivers, and there's really not much that they can do about it. I guess that if you're scared for your job as a delivery driver, you could not participate in this training. But I think oftentimes there's just kind of a next man up. If they're paying drivers to do this, there's an opportunity to make a buck. Somebody's going to do it. The models are going to be trained. And before we know it, we're all going to be getting our hamburgers from, the robot that pulls up to our door. So I just think that this is real insight into the ways that these companies are angling for the future, that the future is going to be here before we know it, and that drivers and delivery workers are going to have to find other ways to make money because, when we start having the models being trained on particular pathways in cities, sidewalks, how to get in and out of certain apartment buildings. I mean, that's the hard stuff. That's having to get over the curbs, having to know how to buzz into an apartment complex. Like that's what these drivers are going to be training the robots to do through the models. And it's those final touches that are going to ultimately drive the work away from humans and to AI.
Yeah, I think there was originally sort of this assumption and maybe sort of hope that look, the AI is going to do the work that the people don't want to do, but there's always going to be a need for, like you said, the person delivering it to the door or the person loading it into the autonomous little bot that can only go down the street and make a right turn a half mile away. They're making it very clear that they are working very aggressively and very creatively to remove every aspect of any sort of human workforce. So all the way from the original argument was, well, okay, they can do drone deliveries, but someone has to get it to the drone. But now they're saying, well, no, we're just going to train one bot to get it to the drone, and the drone's going to do the thing, and then we're going to have another bot ready when it lands there to get it to the house. They are thinking differently than before, where it was, I think everyone thought it might be a one-stop shop, like, how's Uber going to be able to do all these things? They get the car, but how are they going to do this other stuff? Well, the answer is they're not. They're going to piecemeal it together, reverse engineer it by reverse engineer it, and that's what it seems that they're doing. I'm really surprised this isn't a bigger article. It's being written. A lot of the stuff is being written as kind of funny or, hey, it's an interesting way to make money. It doesn't have the same feel to me as how gig work originally was. Like, hey, you get paid to deliver food, and how that was looked at as kind of a funny thing, but also not. Or like, oh, you can someone buys a toothbrush and you go drive it to them. This is different. This is really, like I said, we're finding every possible way to get any sort of human interaction out of this process. So it's very aggressive.
I think what we're seeing is that there's going to be human jobs for a while in the actual places where the food or the products are being made and packaged. So, like in the immediate now, I don't think that we're going to have issues where like the people, the cooks in the restaurants or the people who work at the cash registers and package the food, those jobs are going to exist for some time. But it's going to be the robot that pulls up to the store and takes that order and completely gets rid of the delivery driver. And if we want to take it, one step further, we can talk about Amazon. So like Amazon delivery work, that's going to go away. There's going to be for a long time, and when I use a long time in air quotes, people are going to be working in those factories and warehouses and packaging goods and getting them ready. But eventually, it's going to be autonomous vehicles, robots to the door, drones that make the delivery. And in not too distant of a future, the whole distribution center is going to be robotic. So it's just like step by step, we're integrating AI into more and more aspects of our life. And I think that the delivery worker is going to be the first person to go. That's the first line of work that's going to disappear because we have that technology. We have robots that can make their way down the street and up to a door and deliver, drop off something that exists. The technology of actually like making the food and packaging it, that's going to be harder to do, but it's going to be there eventually. And as we get further and further down the line, the human worker is going to disappear more and more. So I think we're seeing the very beginning of the end of the human worker in these delivery spaces.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think that's very well said. And yeah, and again, love to hear people's thoughts on this. I think it's very fascinating, somewhat tragic, but as you pointed out earlier, the future's here. It's now. Now, this last story, I would love for you to weigh in on. This is directed pretty much at you. Uber is looking to throttle crash payouts. And this is from Axios, and they reported, quote, it would cap lawyers' fees in winning cases so accident victims keep at least 75% of any settlement. However, though, it also limited medical cost reimbursement for accident victims. Now, they're saying while this initiative might sound good on paper, Jamie Cord of the nonprofit Consumer Watchdog calls it a Trojan horse. What he's saying is lower fees would discourage lawyers from taking complex or costly cases and leave many victims without any sort of representation, especially when most families already can't afford to pay normal rates. Court also argued that reimbursement cap is far lower than hospitals' actual charges, potentially leaving patients covering the gap out of pocket or struggling to access care. Now, this is a ballot proposal in California. I don't know, bro. I'd love for you to hear just your thoughts on all of this, but to me, it sounds like he said a Trojan horse and nothing good can come out of this.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that classification. So what Uber's doing here is they're trying to place blame on the lawyers for the damages that they're causing. They're saying, look, the system's out of control, our costs are high because lawyers are coming in and filing lawsuits. Well, what the problem is that Uber's causing crashes and they're injuring people. And as a result of that, people are making claims for their damages, things like the cost of medical treatment for injuries that they themselves didn't cause. Uber caused those injuries for which people are seeking compensation. People want to be compensated for their lost wages when they can't go to work because of a crash that Uber caused, for the pain and suffering, for the loss of normal life, for the disability, for the death. All of these things that these individuals did not cause, Uber's trying to step in and say, well, they should be limited in their ability to recover. So by trying to cap the lawyer's fee, what they're doing is they're saying they're trying to encourage lawyers to, let me say it this way, they're trying to discourage lawyers from taking on cases. So there's always going to be a lawyer for the biggest case, for the case in which somebody dies, for the case in which somebody loses a limb. Those cases are going to have lawyers who are willing and able to put in their time and their resources to take on and go to court and fight for that person. But the vast majority of cases do not involve loss of limb or life. They involve back pain, neck pain, physical therapy for 6 weeks, a fracture of an arm that requires, X-rays or MRIs, things that cost legitimate money, tens of 20, $30,000 to get better from, injuries that require time and resources to heal from. But those cases, if you reduce the attorney's fee to the point where it's not economically viable, those people are not going to have representation. They're not going to have people fighting for them to recover those losses. So now all of a sudden we have cases in which people have been legitimately injured, have incurred thousands of dollars of debt, which they didn't cause, and they're not going to have representation to try to pursue that money from Uber. So what Uber is saying here is don't come after us for the injuries that we cause. Don't try to collect the money that you're entitled to under the law through our insurance policy for the injuries that we cause. Your claim is invalid in their mind, and therefore it should not be prosecuted, and you should not recover damages. If a lawyer is not paid for their time and compensated for the time and expertise that they put into it, these people are not going to have representation and their claims are going to die. And therefore, Uber's going to win by not having a valid claim brought against it. And the customer is going to lose because their medical bills are not going to be paid, their lost wages not recovered, their pain and suffering not compensated for. And where is that going to fall? That's going to fall on the public to have to pay those medical bills. That's going to fall on the state, Medicaid, Medicare. That's going to fall on private insurance companies who have to pay those bills because Uber won't. If lawyers don't take on cases, the only people that win are the corporations that are not having their feet held to the fire, and everybody else, the injured person, the public, our community, the government, everybody else loses. So to call this a Trojan horse is exactly right. And Uber's acting selfishly, trying to keep down injured people for its own benefit.
Yeah, I mean, very well said. I knew you'd have a lot to say on that matter. Now, there is some light at the end of the tunnel here. At least the good side is, look, several law professors have spoken out about this. Saying a lot of what you had said, and this is a ballot measure. So in order for this to pass, it says right here they would need at least 874,000 signatures to qualify for November's ballot. So if you were in California and you're watching right now, just be aware that they're going to try to slide this in like they did with a lot of the other stuff that they do. They may even say, do you want to pay less for lawyer fees or something? They're tricky with that, but there's hopefully people realize that. And like you said, ultimately someone always pays. There's no doubt about it that someone pays. The point is the responsible person should pay. And in these accidents, it's Uber. And they obviously are getting tired of that and trying this. Obviously, if this passes in California, they're going to keep going with it. We've talked about this in length before. They've been poking and prodding recently about ways to cut down on the personal injury attorneys, the fees, the insurances. They're really trying. They've been unsuccessful for most of it, but they are finding any outlet they can of, okay, can we knock them down a peg here? And it's scary that it's gotten to this point.
It is. And there's one point that I think I assumed was evident, and I think I should say out loud.
Yeah.
So when we talk about lawyers' fees for personal injury cases, Uber is not paying those fees. Uber is not like that. Those fees are not charged to Uber. What happens in 99.9% of personal injury claims is there's a contingency fee with the client because most injured people, the vast majority, cannot afford to be paying a lawyer by the hour. There's no retainer. I'm not asking our clients to give me a check for $1,000 so I can get my work started. I work based on the fact that I know that I'm going to do a good job on their case. I'm going to be successful and get a settlement. And when I'm successful, we take a percentage of that recovery. So if we don't succeed, there's no attorney's fee. So it's not like for Uber to come in and say attorney's fees need to be capped because the people are paying too much, the corporations are paying too much, the the government's paying too much. I like whatever their argument is, there is no attorney's fee that the general public is responsible for. The attorney's fee is based on the work that we do and the recovery that we get for the client. It's not factored into the settlement. If a case is worth $100,000, it's because the client's injury is worth $100,000. Their damages were $100,000. So Uber is extremely disingenuous to be going on, to be advocating for lower attorney's fees when they don't have anything to do with the attorney's fees. Nobody's asking them to pay the attorney's fee. It's based on the settlement that we get, which is based on the client's damages. So I just think that fact that they're, the disingenuous nature of what they're claiming and this ballot measure that really doesn't have anything to do with them at all is purely to try to make it so lawyers won't take cases against them. That's all that this is about. It's trying to limit the number of injury claims that are brought against the company for injuries that they have caused.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad you clarified that. It's also sort of along the same vein as, we try to make it clear, if a passenger gets injured in an Uber, we always make it clear, look, you're not suing that driver. Like, you're not taking their home. There's a process here. And I agree with you. Uber's being very disingenuous about this because they're threading this thin gray area where people don't know what you know. And it's great that you're explaining that this is the process. It's not what you think. Uber's making it seem like the lawyers are terrible and everyone's getting screwed. It's just that's not the situation. So I'm very curious to see how this goes. I feel like, because this is in the ballot for November, we probably won't hear a lot about it until November, which is also, again, kind of scary because I feel like this is just sort of sliding in the news under the radar. But we'll see. And, they may also start poking at other states and see what they think about it as well. I don't know. But we're definitely going to be watching this pretty closely for sure. But yeah, that is the stories for this week. And Brian, of course, I'll give you the final say before we head into the apparently beautiful Chicago weekend.
Yeah, I think people are going to be out and about. So, if you find yourself in an accident or injured on the road, please do not hesitate to reach out to Legal Rideshare. Our consultations are always free. We'll help set you up with a solid foundation for your case. We'll help get you things covered like medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering. All of our contact information is on our website, legalrideshare.com. Do not hesitate to reach out to us. I always tell people these claims do not get better with time. You want to start right away. So please do not hesitate, and we'd be happy to talk.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. And as I like to say, that is the end of this week in Rideshare. See you next week.